Welcome to the next edition of the What Else Is New podcast, and with Tim Graves and Paul Monahan. Actually, I've had Paul on here for multiple times. Actually, we've gone back and forth on our podcast, haven't we? So we've done yours, you've done mine. Okay,
absolutely.
So Paul actually came in town today. He surprised me. I didn't know he was coming in town, so it's great. So I wanted
to surprise this guy once in a while.
Exactly, once in a while. So he came in to do some work and get working some clubs and work on just different things and have some meetings. I know you got some clientele in Oklahoma too. So he comes in and wants to come to the greater metropolis of Oklahoma City and spend some time with us. So.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is the center. Edmond is the center of Oklahoma City for me.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
You got to come here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the center of the universe.
Center of the single plane universe. So there you go.
Exactly.
I haven't thought of it that way. But I wanted to talk to you for just a couple minutes and about a little bit about this past week and a half. Obviously, one of the bigger sporting events of the year, the Masters, and what happened at the Masters, and what the outcome of it was. I'll say it was fantastic. I mean, I wanted Rory to win. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I wanted him to get the monkey off his back, and I've always thought Rory was good for the game, and so on. So I think a lot of people felt that way. But
for sure.
I want to talk a little bit about that because during the procedure, during the tournament, even just before it, you started throwing out some emails to our alumnus or alumni of our mental game school, our Alert Attitude of Indifference school, and you started throwing out some great emails to them. And then obviously you had the following through Twitter during the Masters, which is cool.
Yeah.
But you sent out one, and this is what I want to talk about in particular today, because actually we can talk about how you presented it when you sent it out, and then what happened after. And we can talk about this. But
sure.
You sent out an email. I think it was on Saturday morning, or maybe it was Sunday morning. It was just before the final round, so it was probably Saturday night or Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And it was talking about so it had to be Sunday morning, but you knew that. Rory was going to be playing with Bryson in the final round. Okay. And we all know, I mean, this was everything. I mean, you got the face of LIV. I mean, Bryson, which he is. He's the face of LIV. You got Rory, the face of the PGA. And then you literally got a guy. Remember that Bryson's won 2 majors since Rory had won his last major. So Rory hadn't won a major in 14 years or whatever, however many years.
11. Yeah, 10 plus.
Yeah, 10 plus. And, but anyway, and so you had these two guys coming in, and Roy goes in that last round, leading by a couple shots, and with him and Bryson. And you sent her an email and you said, I want to look at these things. We should be watching for these things to see if Rory's going to be successful or not in this last round. Yeah. And talk about what you put out there, because that was really interesting to me.
Sure. I was really interested in looking at a couple different things. I think then it comes from this idea that there's only a few different things that trip us up in any given round. And I have this model that I call the 5 bandits and the 5 heroes. Mm-hmm. And the 5 bandits are the things that will show up in your round and steal your potential.
Right.
And those bandits are fear, frustration, doubt, shame, and quit.
Right.
Now, the big ones, we start with fear because that's the one that happens most often. It's the feeling we have when we are just over that really, really important putt.
Right.
Or in that shot we have to make over water in that really difficult situation, right? The match is all squared, whatever that is. And it shows up for the pros. It shows up for us in our games as well. And so the one thing I said I'd be watching for of the two, one is I'd be watching for how fear shows up for Rory. And one indicator is tentative shots or certainly tentative putts. And so that was definitely something I really was like, okay, if he shows a lot of tentative shots and tentative putts, that's going to be an indication for me that fear is present for him. The other thing I was going to be looking for was how he was processing outcome. And we all process outcome differently, but one of the big bandits is frustration. Mm-hmm. And frustration is a product of how we process outcome.
Right.
And in particular, when the outcome doesn't happen the way we want it to, right? And we can get frustrated and we kind of go sideways. And we can go sideways when frustration shows up. And I said to our group, who's really been exploring this the past month, I said, hey, watch for his reactions after the shots that don't go well for him.
Right.
If there's a lot of intensity there, it would tell me that he is what we call the gray zone game,
right? The gray zone.
Which is really it's a mental game after the shot. That game is not real strong for him today or in that moment. And so those would be two things. And there was another one I said I'm also going to be watching for how he interacts with Bryson.
Right.
And that's interesting that I said that because part of the story coming out of the Masters was how that happened.
So let's talk about, let's go a couple different channels here. I mean, I'm going to jump around in this, but you know me, I always jump around.
Yeah, I'm right there. I'm right there.
So I want to throw this in because he played in the same tournament, but I'm starting to see this year with Scotty Scheffler. So he's the number one player out there in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or he's been number one for a while. And everybody's just on the Scotty Scheffler bandwagon. And he hasn't played that well this year in comparison. But they're starting to show him, and I don't know if it's something new. I think it is. You're seeing a lot of frustration come out on him in the golf course. Have you seen this? In fact,
I have.
This last weekend, he was playing over in the Harriet, whatever it was.
Harbortown.
Yeah. And they showed him one of the shots. He pulled into a bunker left of the green. He hit a tree. I don't know if you saw this.
Didn't know.
He handed the club to his caddy. He pulled it back out of his caddy's hand, slammed the club into the ground. Then, I mean, like with both hands, like, did he bend that club and he handed it back to his caddy? You follow me here?
Yeah.
And I don't remember seeing that in the past. You see me here. So it's almost like it's a cycle of this more frustration, worse golf, more frustration, worse golf. I mean, and with Scotty, and that's what you're talking about when we talk. I'll jump back into the Masters, but that's what you're talking about with Rory. I mean, it's hard to get over that frustration, you know, and it seems like it steamrolls. I mean, like it rolls downhill. You can't stop it. Is that
that's a great point. Yeah. I think you're right. It's certainly very difficult. I swim in these waters a lot. Right. And so I make guesses, and let me just say, they are guesses. Right. I don't know for sure, but I do understand human psychology, I think. And I think I understand how it shows up for us and how it shows up for them.
Right.
And I would say that, look, Rory did some incredible things that day. I mean, because the truth is, I wrote after the Masters, I wrote that Rory choked.
Yeah.
As impolite as it seems to say, or would be, right?
You don't have to lose when you choke.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Yes.
Everybody puts this connotation that you choked, I lost. I choked, I lost.
Yep.
No, you can choke and still win. And you can. And that's what's interesting. And was I happy Rory won? Absolutely. Was it one of the better, one of the things I'll remember for the rest of my life? Absolutely. I think everybody will. I mean, we saw a Grand Slam winner. I mean, come on. I mean, how many times you can see that? I mean, us that over 50 saw with Tiger, okay, and remember it. But, and that didn't seem like that was so quick. That was the thing everybody talks about, that when Tiger won his Grand Slam, it was like, whoa, it just happened.
Right.
Yeah. This kid that came out just happened. Like, is it going to happen again? Is it going to happen again? Is it going to happen again? Like, it was almost like maybe this will happen all the time now. And it was like, and then all of a sudden,
well, that was easy.
Yeah. 20 some years go by. And it's like, okay, maybe this is a bigger deal than we thought. You see him get here.
No question.
And now Rory got it. But talk for a second about this, because we're talking about the bandits, with the band and the fear and the frustration and so on.
Yeah.
But Rory made this comment. When they interviewed him after, they said, we doubled the first hole. Mm-hmm. And if you remember the way he doubled the first hole is he hit the same drive on the same line he had the day before, but he didn't get over the bunker.
He did not clear the bunker.
He missed it by a yard, literally. Yeah. I mean, he missed it from having basically a wedge into the first green into, I have a hard time getting out of this bunker. He makes double.
Yeah.
And at the end of the round, he said that actually lessened, it actually took nerves away. He processes that as to helping him. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I played a lot of events, and I'll be honest with you, I've gone out there and saying, I want to birdie the first 4 holes, or I want to par the first 5 holes and start strong. And all of a sudden your nerves get to you and you make bogey or double in that first hole. And all of a sudden you kind of sit back and go, okay, this stuff is, well, let's go. I mean, what else can happen to me? I mean, talk about that for a second.
I think you're right. I think we certainly saw that in his case. Like and you and I have talked about this. He shows up on the first tee, and to me, he just doesn't look like himself. He looks unhappy to be there.
I agree.
He looks a little bit frightened, a little bit scared. And these are my words. I don't know.
Right.
And maybe others would say, well, he was really focused, and I get all that, but he just didn't. There was something off.
And I think and again, we're going to jump around a little bit, but Bob Rotella, who you have tons of respect for him, he's the godfather of mental game, and I do too. He would have been working with Rory, and come to find out afterwards that Bob Rotella basically told Rory, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, please do, to basically treat Bryson like he wasn't there. Like just don't even acknowledge him.
Yep.
Is that what he said? I mean,
he did. He really wanted Rory focusing on one thing, his game.
Right.
And that meant he had to ignore everything else. The patrons, his competitor, everything else.
The one thing that's interesting with Rory, and if anybody's ever been out there, or with Bryson, I mean, and Rory, but when Rory goes out there, there's a lot of people cheering for Rory, but he's still a European player. And Ryder Cup is in 5 or 6 months. We still have something against the Ryder Cup players. This is us versus them. Bryson has become the social media star. So what's happened now is, and he's got millions and millions of followers. He's done this intentionally. The rowdy group out there is now Bryson's group. So when you go in the tournaments, the rowdy, so when he hits a shot and hits it well, they'll go crazy for him. Rory will get a lot of applause because I love Rory, but they'll go crazy for Bryson. So anybody's playing against Bryson, you got to deal with it. That's the old Tiger. Hey, people used to tell me the greatest rounds of golf they played is when they broke par playing with Tiger, because it was literally because of all the stuff that was going on around them.
Yeah, so hard to do.
I remember talking one time to Bob Tway, and Bob Tway said he played in the PGA Championship at Southern Hills. He played a round with Tiger, I think Bob. And Bob said that the hardest thing was there was a helicopter hovering around them the entire time, because they were literally protecting Tiger. So every shot he had to hit towards a helicopter. He's like, it was the craziest things you ever saw. He goes, envision playing around the golf when you had these sharpshooters up in this helicopter protecting this guy. He said, because he had death threats against him and he's having to play golf out there. How do you deal with that?
So if you can shoot par under those conditions.
No, he said the greatest round of golf he played in his life. He said it's just unbelievable. But now we're getting Rory because the crowds are looking for this. So what you had was you had somebody you had Bryson saying, telling Rory, avoid, just don't acknowledge him. And that's where I think you say it looked uncomfortable, because Rory's not like that. Rory typically will go up there and I'd say he's jovial. He's shaking hands. He's smiling. I mean, the guy, he's not that guy who's stoic out there. Really.
No. And I tell you what, this was a Masters where I spent a lot of time watching the coverage. And, one of the things that I noticed, like I watched quite a bit of Friday's round, Thursday's round, quite a bit of Fridays. Right. I watched Rory's entire round on Saturday. I was like, oh my gosh, he's unbeatable.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Was it Friday that he hit 3 on the first 6 holes?
No, that was the Friday round.
That was the Friday round.
Or maybe was
that Saturday?
That was Saturday.
That's Saturday.
But the Friday round's the one that he literally had 2 doubles and shot even. And he was 4 under one time going into the into 14, and it had the 2 doubles and shot even.
Oh, that was Thursday.
That was the Thursday round.
Yeah.
And then Friday and Saturday, he went 6 under, 6 under. It was just like, oh my gosh. So he should have gone 4 to 6 under, 6 under, 6 under. I mean, this guy was running the field over.
I don't know what his fairway numbers.
It was crazy.
He's hitting every fairway. I'm like, he is unstoppable. I'm like, God, he's finally going to win this thing. 100%. I was like, all right, and 100%. I'm like, and then you start thinking about, okay, well, what's that? Is he going to sleep at all on Saturday?
100%. 100%. So here's the other thing I'll talk about for a second, because the one thing that we really saw in the round with Rory was the ebb and flows, because you see a terrible shot or tentative putt, because you said looking for tendencies out there, or hitting tentative shots.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden he pulls a shot off like he did in 15, hitting this hook 7-iron from 200 yards out into 5 feet from the hole. That there's maybe 1 in a million could hit. He's the one. And you watch the shot, it's like, oh my, it was just incredible. Okay. And then he miss a 5-foot putt. It's like, what just happened? Okay. Yeah. And so, I mean, and then he gets an 18, he has a 125-yard wedge, which he could hit in his sleep. And he basically doesn't shank it, but it's close to a shank right in the bunker.
Yes.
And he has to go into the playoff.
Yes.
So describe a little bit describe that ebb and flowing around and what people can do to get through that, because everybody hits bad shots. I mean, and you saw it. You saw a guy who won a major championship and won the Grand Slam, and you watch some of the worst shots coming out of him, and then some of the best shots in the next shot. How does he do that? I mean, how can you do that? Tell me your recommendation for those guys at home that if they're sitting out there and they hit a bad shot. I mean, we're in a different league completely, but what can they do to help process that?
Yeah, I think one of the important things that Rory did at least on a few occasions for sure. So I'm thinking, was it number 9 where he hits it was 9 or 11 where he shoots, he hits a 9-iron through the trees.
Yeah. It was 7.
Was it 7? Yeah, it was 7.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And then on 17, he hits to like a foot and a half.
Right.
Where, so there's a bunch of things he does that I think are supremely a function of his confidence in his skill level.
Okay.
So he just leans on that and says, I can do this right now.
Right.
And I'm going to do this thing.
Right.
And like he had that ability, but I think part of his story, and this goes to identity, and sometimes we've talked about this, part of his story has to be, I'm the guy who loses the big ones.
Right. 100%.
And he has to battle that.
100%.
Right.
100%.
And so, he chunks it into the creek on 15.
Right.
Or no, on 13.
13.
On 13.
Right. Yeah. But that
right,
shot,
he lays up and
he
chunks
had an
into
80-yard or 70-some yard wedge and hit it 20 feet right of the hole into the water.
Now, he's like, what do you do?
Right. Right.
He's always got to recover from that.
Right.
And, the putt on 15.
Right.
Right.
100%.
He can make that in his sleep, but he's got that identity that's not letting him play freely.
Yeah.
Whereas if you watched him on Saturday, oh my gosh, rolling it,
100%,
bombing it, 100%. Everything, he's playing freely. And so I think that's what these bandits do for us is years and years and years ago, Timothy Galloway, he called this interference.
Right.
Right. And we have to be able to recognize the interference, number one. And so that's awareness. We have to have the awareness. And then we have to have a game plan to move past that.
Right.
And so like, if I'm feeling anxiousness, I have to be able to recognize that, number one. And then I got to be able to do something to shift out of that. Now, it's not always easy, but what I recommend is moving, I have this concept of, all right, there's a bandit that's going to steal this away from you, but there's also a hero that if you cultivate that, it'll crush, it'll overcome the bandit. And so for fear, we have this idea, the hero is passion, love for the moment, appreciation for the moment. And it's just really using that inner dialogue to say, all right, I love being here. I love that I'm playing against Bryson. He's playing his best, which I love that because I want to beat that guy at his best. Now it's my turn and I'm going to roll this thing in.
Right.
That's a way different thought than, oh man, I better not miss this.
Right. There's two other things I want to talk about before we wrap this up. But the two things that I noticed, and one with Rory, was whether he hit a great shot in the shot before or a poor shot in the shot before. And I love you brought that up because think about 2 par 5s in the back 9 of Augusta National or 13 and 15, the birdie holes. Those pros should be making birdie or eagle. They got to play them 2 under to 4 under. To win a tournament. And for Rory, who's the longest driver out there, he was second to Bryson in the tournament by a yard. And he was 30 yards longer than the others on average and hitting more fairways than anybody. This guy's hitting low irons into the greens. And you look at 13, he's got 70 yards into this thing and he hits it 30 feet right of the pin of the hazard. I promise you, 99% of our students can hit that green, will hit that green from there. Right. And then the best player in the world misses 30 feet to the right and puts in the hazard. The only place you couldn't miss it. And then on 15, he hits the hook 7 iron in there that nobody, 1 out of a million can pull that shot off. Maybe. Crazy. And he pulls that shot off. Yeah. So, literally within minutes. But the one thing I noticed is that whether he hit a good shot or poor shot, every time he's getting up over it, same pre-shot routine, same in-shot routine, same post-shot routine. You notice that? Right. He was the demeanor was the same. Absolutely. Like I think, and that's where you got to give the guy like all the credit because he just, in my opinion, he probably grinded his way through that day when he just didn't have to that much. Right. Okay. That's me. Right. That's my opinion. I certainly trust Dr. Bob and all that, but that being the case, he had a plan and a strategy so that he was resetting on every shot and he could clear the mechanism enough, to use an old baseball term. Okay. So I'm going to ask you 2 things and I'm going to ask you your opinion first on this. To me, because I watch the tournaments, listen to the post-round interviews, the in-round interviews, that when they're talking with their caddies, whether they're interacting on the golf course. Yeah. That's what I enjoy watching. That's gold. But the second I watched him go into the playoff in the 73rd hole, and he played against Justin Rose in the playoff, and all of a sudden, to me, it seemed to let me like he got comfortable in that situation. So he's in the playoff, which you think would be the most nerve-wracking thing in the world. Okay. But it looked to me like, and it kind of showed it because he hit 3 perfect golf shots in one of probably the most stressful situations of his life or he'll ever have. Probably is. This is probably the most stressful hole he'll ever played in his life. It is to win not only the major that he's always wanted to win, is to win the Grand Slam. And it's this hole. All of a sudden you get in the tee boxes on this hole Why do you think? Because I really think he was more relaxed. Why do you think that on that 73rd hole? Why do you think he was? I think you saw the same thing, didn't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Why?
And so I'm gonna talk about something that happened years ago, but it had just emerged. Was it Chris DeMarco who beat Tiger for a big? Was it a PG? No, was it a PGA?
Yeah,
or was it a?
He got in a playoff with him and lost him in the playoff actually, but TC Chin was the first one to beat him in a PGA.
Tiger. Yeah, and there's another player, and the exact player who it was sort of escapes me at this point, but they were talking to him recently, and he was basically saying, "Look, it's really important that I know that I can beat Tiger in this moment, right." And so the upshot of his recalling this was that his identity was, I'm a guy who beats Tiger in this moment, and I need to know that.
Hal Sutton. You're talking about Hal Sutton.
Thank you. Yes.
The championship.
That's right. Because it was the anniversary recently. So he's talking about that.
And Hal Sutton said, there's only 3 people that need to know I can beat Tiger. And it was me, Hal Sutton, his caddy, and Tiger. Because I only 3 people need to know I need to beat Tiger.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So perfect. Thanks for that setup.
Yeah.
I think that was the dynamic at play.
Really?
Yes. Because Rory has had Justin Rose's number for a long time.
He has.
Even I think there was some footage of Rory's like a 17 or 18-year-old playing in a tournament. He beats Justin Rose.
Yeah.
So I believe that Rory has this identity that, this is I'm in this matchup, I win every time.
Right. I think you're right.
So that's part identity.
And the other thing I think on that I talked to you about earlier was that he's comfortable around Justin.
Yeah.
Justin and him are buddies. They go back, they travel together. I mean, that was kind of like, Justin's almost like not the father, but kind of almost the father figure to Rory, because he's 15 years older than Rory. And he's all of a sudden, he's I think he's 10 plus years older than Rory.
Yeah, he's 11 years older.
He paved the trail for Rory. I mean, he's been on the right, Rory's been on the Ryder Cup 3 or 4 times. Justin's been on like 7 or 8 times. He kind of, and so there was comfort there. So
and is there a lovelier fellow than Justin Rose?
No,
right?
Absolutely
lovelier
not.
chap.
No, because it was funny when they got in the playoff, I kept thinking to myself, okay, there's 2 people I want to win this event, and neither from the United States. It's these 2 right here. I mean, he's been so close.
Exactly.
He's been so close to it. But to me, that seemed like it was almost like a done deal. But here's the other thing, and I want to end it here, but I heard this comment, and I don't know if it was from somebody in the Golf Channel, it was maybe a post-game interview, but if they didn't play 18 and if they would have tied 18, so if Justin would have made the putt, if Rory would have missed his, if they had tied it, okay,
and go on to another playoff,
they'd have gone to number 10. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And number 10 is the hole that 14 years ago, Rory was winning the Masters by 4. And this was the back 9, and he stepped on 10T with 9 holes to play. And he was leading by 4, and he hooked it into Butler's cabin. He hooked it so hard off that tee. I think he made a triple, and that was it. The tournament was literally over. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
And they made a comment. They were wondering if he could have gotten through it, because Woody stood up on 10T, and those bandits, those nightmares come pouring back in his head. Talk about that for a second. So if he'd have gotten 10T, and we could imagine put Paul Monahan in that situation, said, "Here you go, Paul." Okay, what would you told him? What would you said to him? I mean, so you're not. So it's not Dr. Bob, it's Dr. Paul. Okay, and you're on 10T, and he turns to you. So Roy turns to you. Okay, and this is for everything. This is for his major championship. He's playing in this. He's in a match. He's basically a match play now, because they tied 18.
Yeah.
So on the 74th hole now. Okay, and you're playing against Justin. And that in the back of his head, he's thinking about a hook he is hooked into Butler cabin the last time in this position. What would you told him?
Okay. So I think I helped him go back to earlier in the day, because he birdies 10.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Earlier in the day.
He like a foot.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So I would be all about, okay, another birdie here. Beautiful. Right. Hold the vision. You got this. Go. So, I mean, that's about it. I mean, because just to make sure that he's not thinking about that.
So he created his own story, which was the birdie earlier in that day. So it's a new story. So you put it because the hook in the Butler cabin is a story.
Yeah.
Okay.
He knows that.
But he's got to rewrite the story. And so you're helping him rewrite the story for him.
I'm helping him reconnect to something that he knows he can do.
Okay.
And that was something very recent.
Right.
And he's absolutely capable of it. And when you do that, by the way, there's no way for the other thing to get in there.
I love it, because we call it either replacement.
Replacement.
Tank. Replacement. Tank.
Yeah.
We're throwing something. So let's get to our guys in the reality check. So they get over a hole that they hit in the water every single time, or they seem like they hit every time, or some hole they can't make par on, some hole that just gets them every time on the golf course. And we all have those holes. They need to be putting something else in their head in that first tee. Is that what you're saying? Or putting that tee?
100%.
Yeah.
This shot, what you did, now here's where I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, because what you did last time has no bearing on what you can do this time.
Right.
You've got to be able to envision the shot, connect to the target, and step into the shot.
Right.
And I think that's what, when we get into trouble, we connect to the mistake.
Right.
We connect to that, that feeling of jacking it and hooking it into the water or whatever it is.
Right.
But we've got to connect to the target and make a good swing and go.
And then when we can write a good story, when we happen to make a par birdie in that hole, you want to keep replaying that story in our head, don't we?
We do. And sometimes that's just about, shutting your eyes for a second and holding onto that vision and just watching that ball fly. Oh, there it is. Right. Yeah, I remember that. Boom. Oh, there it's hanging up there forever. And
this is the plug I'm going to put into this, because this has a lot to do with our when we talk in our AAI schools, when we have we call it the red zone, green zone, gray zone. And we have that gray zone. Yep. And we talk about the post-shot routine and how you've got to appreciate, you got to enjoy, you got to celebrate those functional or those good shots. And too many golfers don't do that.
That's a great point, because there's power in telling our subconscious that shot that I just hit there, that's hanging in the air and just perfectly baby draw, hit it farther than I've ever hit it. If we don't take the time and register that moment and tell our subconscious, this is what I'm looking for, that can be problematic for us, because we don't want to let those moments go. And we really want to register those as that's what we're trying to experience.
I'll never forget. I can give a quick story here. I know I always want these, because I love giving stories.
That's all right.
But I'll never forget.
We got time.
Number 6.
We got time.
I grew up a course called Hefner Golf Course, and number 6 is a par 5. That's a dogleg left par 5. And it's a tough little hole for me, because number one, you really kind of have to hit a hard draw off the tee, and it doesn't really fit my eye. It never did. I like to play more of a straight to high cut anyway, and it rolls through the fairway. And I'm not saying I wouldn't make bogeys in this hole, but it's a birdie hole, and I very seldom birdied it, because I couldn't get off that tee very well. And this was growing up. I mean, I could go play 4 or 5 under in this golf course. It wasn't a hard golf course, but this hole, it'd be like I'd shoot 400 par this hole, and you should be eagle in this hole. Okay. It's okay. And I'll never forget that one day I got in this hole, I got in the tee box, and there was a storm coming in. It faces straight into the west, and there was a storm coming in, and the clouds were blacker than black. And I probably shouldn't have been out there with my friends, but we're dumb and stupid. And I teed it up on that tee ball. I teed up on the box, and I hit a shot, and it was absolutely 100% the perfect drive for this. And I'll never forget to this date, because it was black clouds and a white ball was going into it, and it looked like it was glowing the whole way. It went down the left-hand side of the fairway, hit perfect, bounced up there. And I mean, I literally hit it 300 plus, had like basically 150 into the green, but it was the perfect line of the drive that I just never hit in this hole. And what's funny is that was probably close to 45 years ago. And I step up in the tee box today, and I still envision that shot. It's a story I create.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And so I went from literally playing, and I've hit a bad tee ball on this tee shot 1,000 times, because it just doesn't fit me. It's one of those holes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I now get up there, and I always envision that. I'll never forget that. And yes, we got pulled off the golf course after that because we had to go because of the storm.
Exactly.
But I'll never forget hitting that black cloud, but that perfect ball flight. I sit in the tee box, and it takes me 2 seconds to jump right into that shot. That's what it's helped me.
Great.
It happened. It absolutely helped.
Yeah.
Because I wrote that story about that shot. I could have thought of all the hooks I put in the left trees and the cuts I've hit into the right stuff on this hole.
Yeah. But your subconscious, like you tell your subconscious, or you tell yourself in those moments, just do this, just do this thing. And you have that vision, and it's very powerful.
To me, it's a recall and the vision, it's rewriting the story. You say rewriting the story.
Rewriting the story.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's because I remember hearing about that. What would Roy have done in 10T? But I love what you said. You would have reminded him immediately about what you just did, how successful you were, and go.
Yep.
And then go. And you said, I like what you said, you've done it quick. There would have been no focus, not just, hey, you got this, let's go. That's why you hear those caddies constantly say, you got it, let's go. You got it, let's go. You got it, let's go.
Yeah, they'll often say, hey, you got the vision? Right. It's one of the last things they'll say. You got that in your mind? You got that vision?
Right.
And what they're really saying is they want you connecting to the target and nothing else.
Right. I love it. Yeah. I love it. Well, I enjoyed the Masters. I assume you did.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's the first time I ever live tweeted something
it was
on
really
X.
Cool. So you should tell the guys at home about that. I mean, just where they can go to see that. Because it's really cool. You live tweeted through the Masters.
I did. Yeah. First time I ever did that. And so probably like all of us, we all sat there for 5 hours, 5.5 hours. Right. Everything stopped. But you can go on my Twitter account. I can't even tell you what it is. It's Paul Monahan.
Okay. Right.
Coach Paul or Coach Paul M or something like that. I should know that by now. But anyways, yeah, it was really fun to follow the ups and downs of the moment and of the afternoon. And it was really cool too, because, I'd be like, well, okay, here's the situation. Right. This is what I'm looking for. Right. If this happens, then I'm saying it's fear. If this, if he overcomes this, then we're past it. And then invariably, the fear would show up. Right. And, so it was really kind of funny to watch. And you can see, if you read through, there's not that many posts, but you can read through them even at this point and get a sense for exactly what I was seeing as a mental game coach. Right. And what I think Rory and Bryson,
because there were so many ups and downs in that round. So many. It was unbelievable. That was the coolest thing about that. So,
well, yeah. And we even talk about all right. And it's obviously it's the Rory story, but there was a guy named Bryson there too.
Right.
And of course he bombs it off the first tee and he 2-shot swing and it's off to the races and here we go. But then something strange happens. And I chronicle this on my live tweets where he cannot find his distances.
100%. And I'll have a podcast about that, but I know it's that single length clubs issue he has because he can't dial the distances of the clubs. And
it was crazy.
And you notice that when you get under the most pressure, those things always start coming out. So when that adrenaline's kicking, the adrenaline's flowing, and all of a sudden he normally hits an 8-iron 170 yards and it's going as far as 200, or it's going between 150 to 200 yards because he's used a system now that's different than most of us. And you saw for 2 days, the last 2 days, but in particular the last day, he had no way to figure out his distances. And the number one course in the world that you got to know your distances is Augusta National. You're off by 10, 15 yards. His doubles written all over it. That's
so good. And I think on our next conversation, let's talk about Bryson on the greens at the Masters because he struggled on his distance as well. And I'd love to get your take on why that
very
that
mechanical.
Happened,
it's the way he's very mechanical on the greens. And there's issues to that even being a genius like Bryson, he's a genius. I mean, that IQ is way up there.
Oh my gosh.
He got overloaded. He got way overloaded because the system he uses is a mechanical process of figuring out the slope, figuring out the speed, figuring out up versus down, figuring out wind, and then putting the inches back 3 inches through. And when your brain is going that fast and you got overloaded, and you could see it. You could definitely 100%. See it. You could see it. You got to start going back into your trust and your feel that time. And Bryson kind of got away from it. So
he sure did.
And he's a genius in that. But you see, when Bryson's going out there playing for fun, he'll go out there and try to break 50. I mean, it's ridiculous what he can do in these courses.
Yeah.
But he gets that pressure going, that brain starts going sideways. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's even tougher guys like him. So
no doubt.
Well, I enjoyed it, bud.
Yeah.
Like always. And we'll do it again. Do it again and again. So next time you sneak back in town,
absolutely,
you come see me. So I appreciate it. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Yep.